This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West podcast with your host, Brandon Cook, Nick Harrington, and Travis Foch.
Welcome back to the Hockeytown West podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Travis.
And it's officially time to kick off the off-season festivities for us. You're tuning in now to the Grand Rapids Griffins season recap. We'll dive in and talk about pretty much everything that happened this season. Talk about the offense, the defense, the goalies, special teams. We'll talk about what we kind of expect in the offseason or hope to see, and, just anything else we think of along the way. But first, we'll start with some news and updates around the organization, because there's been some roster changes that impact the Toledo Walleye and the Grand Rapids Griffins, and I guess even the Red Wings, because who knows what's happening with the goalie they signed. We'll start with talking about goalies, though. Unfortunately, Jan Bednar, it looks like he's moving on to something else. We don't know where he's going, but the Griffins did not extend an offer to him, and he's not coming back to Toledo, it looks like. So Yanni is heading out of town. How does that make you feel, Trav?
I just hope he gets a great opportunity. I mean, even if it wasn't with this organization, hopefully it's... I'd love to see him get a full-time AHL opportunity. Or if he chooses to go back, home overseas, you just wish him the best. His development over the last 2 years, I mean, if you look at his first year and the jump he made this year to be in that 1A, just good for him. I mean, personal-wise, it sucks that the Griffins didn't extend him, but I'm sure he'll land on his feet somewhere.
I was pretty devastated about this. I thought they were kind of riding in those last 3 games to hey, you're going to get ready for the big leagues. You're going to Grand Rapids. It kind of felt like that was the direction the organization was going. And he played this year with us a few games up here with Grand Rapids, so I just figured he was the next one to be moving on up. At Travis's point, I hope he doesn't go to the AHL if it's not with us, because I don't want to face him. So hopefully he's going overseas. But yeah, I'm not happy about this. I really thought he was going to be here next year backing up Cossa. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about it either, but I will say, at least with the opportunities he was given, he went out there and put on a good show, and he's, like Travis said, he's going to land on his feet somewhere, and he's probably going to go do really well for himself. I thought he kind of solidified himself in that backup spot in Grand Rapids. I know a lot of people were saying Guylander's going to be there next year, and who knows what's going to happen. Again, the goalie situation with Detroit is the most bizarre thing in the world, and if you can predict what's going to happen, you should probably buy a lottery ticket, because that's about how easy it would be to predict what's going to happen, if we're being real here. And speaking of the goalie situation, obviously the Detroit Red Wings a week or two ago now signed a goaltender out of Czechia. Michael or Michel, whatever we're going to go with there, Postava or Postava. You could say it a lot of different ways. We'll figure out what it actually is one of these days. 23-year-old goaltender out of Czechia, though, with some good numbers. And, we don't know if he's playing over there next season, if he's coming over here. Is he going to be in Toledo? Is he going to be in Grand Rapids? Nobody really knows what's happening with him, but we lose a goalie in the rotation, we add a goalie. And, I mean, Trav, looking at those numbers there, what do you think we can expect from this guy?
I don't think we can really know until we see him, right? It's a different world when you come over here. And it's tough. This organization, you never know with goaltenders. And I don't know why everybody's freaking out about the goaltenders. You need what?
We'll add a piece, because I literally just refreshed my Elite Prospects page here, and it changed to showing him with the Griffins next season.
Oh,
it showed him nowhere next season, and now it shows with the Grand Rapids Griffins. So we can just kind of assume he's going to be here.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, 23-year-old goaltender signing an ELC wouldn't make a lot of sense for him to stay over there. But, I mean, kind of like you said, if you can predict this, by all means, congratulations, go buy a lottery ticket. But there's rumors that they're going to be in the goalie market, and they still need at least one organizationally, whether that's a Toledo signing or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but it's an exciting player. He's put up some pretty outstanding numbers overseas, so we'll see how that translates. If it translates, you never really know with goaltenders.
Yeah, his numbers in the playoffs last year. I mean, 1.97 goals against and a .940 save percentage in 17 playoff games, then rocked a 2.39 goals against and a 921 save percentage in the regular season over 42 games. So hopefully that can translate over here. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is kind of new territory if you say this is going to be the pairing with Cossa. You got a young goaltender with a young goaltender. It's not something we've seen in Cossa's last 2 years here in Grand Rapids. So that is something exciting to look at, I guess. And I don't know. Who knows? Again, we just hope it translates. That's all we can ever worry about here. Other Griffins news on the roster here. Gabriel Seeger got an extension, a 1-year deal with the Griffins, which I think we can all agree here very well earned by him.
Yeah, he was great at the face-off. A lot of people were complaining about this signing. I saw it either on Discord or on Twitter, and I'm like, this guy was great on the face-off. He was one of the better. He was over 50%, something where we lacked. He had great leadership throughout the season, and he played pretty consistently throughout the season too. Like he wasn't scratched a whole lot. He wasn't injured. Like he played. So just a depth signing. I don't know why people are everybody's stressing out. I think people want big moves right now.
I think they do too. I mean, a fourth line center, and he was really the stable piece of the Griffins' fourth line. 59 games, 10 goals, 7 assists for 17 points last season, and a +5. Low penalty minute total to at 10 there. Responsible player. And like Nick said, great in the dot, which is something the Griffins struggled with up and down the lineup. He was really just a solid foundational piece for that fourth line. And like we've seen, when he was paired up with Hunter Johannes and Carson Bantle, that line was unstoppable. It was the exact thing you'd want from an AHL fourth line. So if everyone's thinking they signed him and like that's a Red Wings move, no, that's a Griffins player. That's the depth we need here in Grand Rapids. There's no room to be upset, and he's a great player. We've loved talking to him throughout the season, and from our end of season interview with him, he felt like he had a great season, learned a lot, and felt really proud of his game. So happy to see him get an extension. Now some sad news for some fans here. First one. Emil Viro heading overseas as well. Griffins defenseman for the last couple of seasons here. This past season, 62 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, and a -15. Kind of just didn't see a route to success with him in the organization anymore, unfortunately. Especially, he was the 3rd-round draft pick in 2020 by the Red Wings as well. So seeing a draft pick like that not really pan out and go is always sad, but you can't hit a home run with all of them. And he's going to head overseas to hopefully find his game again.
Yeah, I mean, this was a guy like when he was, 2 years ago, right before Waddy came in. Like he was a dog in the corners. He played really physical. He played really well, but he just could not crack the lineup consistently. And like I think when Waddy came in, it just kind of like pushed him right to the doghouse. I guess I don't know. Like, just wasn't one of the top guys to be making the lineup. They put either Rafferty or Didier up there instead of him. So they went more of the veteran side than the prospect side on the side. But hopefully he has success over there. And who knows if we'll see him back or, maybe he comes back to haunt us later. Who knows?
Let's hope not. I mean, not that he hope he doesn't come back, right? But hope he doesn't come back to haunt us, I should say. But yeah, Viro, I think his game's well suited for the overseas play. I think he'll do pretty well over there. Then you go down to the Walleye side, and 2 guys confirmed leaving on top of Jan Bednar as well. And these are a gut punch for us. These are 2 guys that have been on the show before and are, I'd say, good friends of the show at this point. One being Trenton Bliss and the other being Tyler Spezia. Those are 2 names we didn't want to see leave Toledo. I think one of them we kind of knew he was going to be heading overseas after this season. But the second one was a little bit of a surprise to us in Spezia there, and it sucks. I know, Trav, this one, I know it happens in the coast, right? This is pretty normal down there, but at the same time, these are 2 guys that we loved to interact with all season long.
Well, first off, I mean, thank you to both of them. Like, Bliss was always seemingly rocking the hat that we gave him. Spezia, I mean, we didn't get to talk to him a ton in the second half because he was out with the injury, but always made time, always said hi, always, so great. And when he told me that he was going over, I was like gut punched. I was like, no way. Like, congratulations. Like, you've earned the opportunity, and I get why he's going, but like at the same time, it's like after this year and how like magical like it was with him and Hawkins, you're like, man, maybe these 2 will stay and ride it out together here. But at the same time, you get an opportunity, and it seems like it's something that he's always maybe wanted to do with going overseas. So, it's huge for him. So excited for both of them. And, you wish them both the best. And it does suck, but, you're used to it. Like, not so much the last couple years with big names leaving, but it was a matter of time. And I think if you go through and kind of look back at this year, I think we all kind of had the feeling that this might be the last kick at the can for maybe this core to a point. Like, I feel like there's probably more coming, but it is what it is. It's sadly a part of the coast, and you just got to be happy that, for the memories that they gave you and the ride that they took you on, and just be excited for them in their future.
Yeah, I mean, congrats to both of them, because it's a bigger payday over there, especially with Spies going to the DEL. Like, that's not a small league over there in Germany. And you got Bliss going to Norway. So they're all going to getting that payday that they rightfully earned. Obviously put up big numbers for the Toledo Walleye this past season. And as Travis said, the only words we can say to them is congratulations and thank you guys. And we'll be watching and keeping tabs on them. And who knows, maybe we can get them both on the show before they make the move all the way over there. You never know. But that's all for news, updates, and everything else crazy around the league. It's the off season. Every episode's going to kick off with some sort of roster change, signing, or whatever the heck else is going on. Let's dive into this season recap for the Griffins. And I want to start with just our overall thoughts on the entire season here, and start with, the positives. And Nick, I'm going to pass it off to you to kick us off here.
Oh boy. So, I mean, the season ended on a sour note, right? Like, we made it to the playoffs, so that's fantastic. That's a great spot to be in, right? That's all we see on Twitter is gotta make the playoffs for everybody in the Red Wings organization. So we made the playoffs, so that was great. But just I felt there was a lot of like sourness at the end of the season of just like we should have been further along, we should have moved the needle more. We had all these big prospects coming in, and when I break down the stats, like it's crazy to look at the stats and to see how much it was pretty similar to the year before. And we had lost a lot of like veterans, a lot of leadership, a lot of depth. And for us to be able to kind of run it back and not have too much change, but still with like the roster, this roster wasn't as strong as the roster from the year before, right? And so like seeing that and just being at the same amount of wins, almost the same amount of losses, like that, to me, that's crazy. Like that's super positive, when you break it down that route, there's a lot of good there. So, I mean, all throughout the season, we kept looking at it and we're like, these players are just playing way over what they're supposed to. There were weeks where I shouldn't say weeks, but there were a lot of games where we played very shorthanded on the forward side, on the roster side, players going up. We were mad for not more signings, more trades on our end. But overall, it was positive to see these players, these young players. We had Nate Danielson first line. He had a lot of responsibility there of not only being defensively responsible, but also like he put up the numbers in the second half of the season. You had Ammo really trying to put the team on his back halfway through the season before his injury to get this team out of a rut. I mean, it was just like to see those guys develop was huge, was important. You had Shai Buyam as well, another guy coming in. He I think near the end of the season, he kind of hit the wall, which is expected for your rookie season, but there was still a lot of good on his end as well. You saw him up near the top. I think he was first pair a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah, he made the first pair a couple times, and he was 8th in the team in points and scoring.
I mean,
as a defenseman.
As a defenseman, and he was running the power play. Like, that's something you didn't see from some of the guys that were here last year. So, like, those are a lot of positives of, like, these guys coming in, increasing. You want to see a lot of next steps for next year, but I think those were huge. I think, too, like, Cossa played really well throughout the year. Others may disagree with me. That's fine, but his stats are right just about the same on a worse roster team than he had the year before. So I think those are a lot of wins that we could take out, even though it might not show on the wins loss column. And a lot of the losses were more like overtime, shootout losses, things like that. So it's like that's where your veterans, that's where your leadership, that's like that stuff comes into play, that experience, that depth to help. So
Yeah.
I threw a lot at you.
No, you're good, because it's funny, because in our note to prep for the show, I have positives: maintain point pace from last season, made the playoffs, and player development. And you hit on all three there. And for those watching on YouTube wondering where Travis magically disappeared to, he was on call for work tonight. There's some storms that went through Toledo. He got the call in the middle of the recording here, so he's gone for the rest of the show, which is a bummer, because I know he wanted to hit on a lot of points tonight too. Even though he doesn't cover the Griffins as much as the Walleye, he always has valuable insight. So we'll do our best to make it through without him now.
Maybe his takes will be a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, I mean, the positives, there's not much more for me to add than what you said there, besides just stressing that point that a lot of guys were playing a lot more minutes in some positions than they were expected to at the beginning of the season. You know, thinking of the couple of nights where, you know, we're talking to Coach Watson after the game and, well, why did you make this decision for the roster? Well, that's all I have. You're rostering literally every available player that you have. The injuries and call-ups this season really, you know, and the lack of depth signing in the AHL really did hurt this team. And, you know, for them to produce what they did out of everything, it was a good season in that sense. Obviously, losing in the playoffs is always going to be a sour note, but only one team can win the championship, right? As long as you're in the dance, and look at Coach Watson, he's never missed the playoffs as a head coach at the ECHL and AHL level, continues that streak, and, you know, making the playoffs for back-to-back years in Grand Rapids when this team missed the playoffs for quite a few years is a really positive thing to see, and it's a good direction for this organization to be going. And the last piece I'll hit on with the positives too, you know, to pick off the player development side, you look at guys like Amadeus Lombardi, right? He did have to battle some injuries this season. He only played 44 games, but had 40 points in comparison to where he was at last season. That's a massive, massive increase in production from him. I mean, you outscored Nate Danielson by 1 point in the season, but Nate played 71 games. You played 44. Like, that's a pretty impressive result, and that's not the only guy who obviously showed development this year. It's across the roster. A lot of these young guys showed that they're making the right steps and going the right direction for the development that this organization needs. So that pretty much covers the majority of the positives there.
I think I want to add too is, like, we added some guys in the offseason. We added Joe Snively. We added Sheldon Dries. We added Austin Watson. And like those guys made huge impacts. I mean, they didn't do enough to replace the guys that we lost, but you can't have like Marco Casper, Berge, like those guys put up some big points. And Carter for a whole season 2 years ago put up some big points on that first line. Like those guys weren't expected to pick up all of the slack, so you needed some of those guys on the lower depth to be able to pick up some of that. But those guys came in, they performed, they did really well. Their chemistry mixed like instantly. It was crazy with Snively and Dries, who had I don't believe they've ever played together before, unless you go back to like AAA midgets or I don't know. Like,
yeah, you'd swear they've played together their whole lives, honestly. But you're spot on to call out those three guys. I mean, that's three of the top 4 scoring players on this team for this season, and they were all new additions. And Austin Watson's probably the biggest surprise of them all. I mean, we all knew he could play at a high level, but seeing what he did on the ice and off the ice for this team was massive. But all three of those guys were great contributors to this team, basically just as advertised. They were exactly what we expected them to be. You know, there were some games where you maybe wanted a little more, but that next game, then they turn it up another notch and you get double the production you expected out of that game. So I'm very happy with those 3 additions, and I'm excited to know that Austin Watson is signed for this next season already too. You know, you have him and Shine guaranteed for next season already. That's a huge piece of this leadership core with the Grand Rapids Griffins. Whether Austin Watson's in Detroit or Grand Rapids for most of the season, that'll be, you know, the biggest question mark. Do we think he might deserve that spot in Detroit? Yeah, probably. I mean, we've seen what he's been able to do up and down this organization all season. So again, the offseason will tell, but looking at this last season, those 3 guys were huge. I do want to go to, go ahead.
I want to throw one other name at you too, is Andre Becker, because he was drafted just last year and then played a significant portion on the 3rd and 4th lines. I mean, I remember a lot of shootouts that he was in, and just or clutch
money
spots.
In the shootout.
You don't typically see a guy that gets drafted and comes over right away. Who played quite a significant. a significant roll up further down the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, 20 points in 59 games from him. And, he battled injury throughout the season, too, as well. I mean, he started the season injured. He didn't play for a while. He was the best kept secret in the organization. We didn't know where he was. We knew he was drafted, and then there was just nobody kind of knew where he was going to be playing. And then all of a sudden, his ELC was signed, and he was in Grand Rapids, and it was great, but he was here the whole time. So, yeah, he was fun to watch this season. I'm excited to see what his development looks like into this next season. I think this next season could be a big one for him. And, kind of watching what he does this offseason will be something to keep an eye on. Now I want to move to the negatives, though, right? And the biggest negative would be the special teams. We won't start there. I want to start with one that not a lot of people talk about, and it's the record at home. You look at this team last season, and at home, they were a dominant force. And when I say that, they were 23-7-4-2 at home last season. You go into this season, they wrapped up the year at 17-15-2-2. By, I think it was middle of January, they had lost more games at home this year than they did the entire season last year. And Dan Watson, one of his biggest things is protecting home ice. Put on that show for the fans. Our fans spend their hard-earned money to come watch this team play. And the team just couldn't get it together at home. It was like, it felt like 90% of the post game we were doing there for a while was a loss, and it was not fun. Like, the vibes are way better after a win, man. They're way better.
Yeah.
What do you think led to the home? I want to say home collapse, but it kind of felt like it.
It was odd. I mean, yeah, this was the year that they bring out brand new jerseys, a little extra for the fans. It's just, I don't know what happened. They just could not get it going. And I mentioned it in January. I'm like, it seems like we win 2 games, we lose 3 games. We win 2, we lose 3. And like, we were down. That was the worst. But like, this was our first year doing media, and we're down there in the locker room, and it's not a good feeling. And it's our first year, and we're figuring this out, and we're down there, and we have to ask these guys questions about how did this game go? Give us what happened. Like this, yeah.
So many of them were frustrating, like blown lead losses too. Those were the ones that stung the most. Those are the hardest ones to do post game with, because you're writing your questions down middle of the game. You're like, we're playing so well, and then it just falls apart, and you're like, well, shit. Now all those questions I have, I guess I could use them for another game or another time.
And we started the season so well too. I think it was like two or three shutouts in a row, and it was just like something that had not happened before. And we're like, holy crap! Like, here we go. We're gonna be on this. And it was like right in December, January is kind of where the wheels fell off from this with this team. But probably right in coincidence with Todd McClellan taking over the Red Wings.
Yeah, we'll talk about the second half collapse here in a minute. And I want to give that comparison too. I say the home record, the away record this year, 20-14-2-0. And you compare that to last season's away record, and it was actually a lot better. We were 14-16-4-2 last year on the road. So we became a better road team. If we could have maintained the home momentum that we had from the season prior and got better on the road like we did this year, this team might have won the league.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I don't know, that's a curse too. So I don't know if you want to do that. But at the same time, it was just weird to see them not be able to put on that show for the fans at home. It was frustrating. And I know a lot of fans share that same feeling, that it was just frustrating the nights we were watching them. I mean, there was nights they were getting booed on home ice. That's never a good situation. And you think into the playoffs too, when the first 2 games of that series were at home, like, could have won a couple of those, could have won both those. Might have been a different story here. We might still be covering them, since the Calder Cup playoffs are still going on. But at the same time, yeah. Moving on from that, man, special teams. We know it was going to be a talking point of this recap here. We'll probably talk about it a little here and more later on in the show. Statistic-wise, the Griffins finished 21st in the league on the power play at 17.7%. And on the penalty kill, they finished 23rd in the league at 79.8, which that one, I mean, the power play was one that was the most frustrating, right? You'd see what the streak, I think it was 41 power play opportunities that we didn't score on at some point in the season during the second half collapse there. But to see the penalty kill take the nosedive it did was also the most shocking thing.
Yeah, was it really 40? I was like, I remember at one point it was 0-32. So like
I think we hit 41 if I remember. I'd have to go back on our Twitter page because we kept posting the tracker basically.
yeah, that's just unacceptable. That was, I mean, I think right there you get your power play going. That's gonna lead to a couple wins. It's gonna be a lot of momentum too, and like we just couldn't get it going. I mean, I think that's a lot of too. It's like we didn't take a whole lot of penalties throughout the season. We were one of the least, we're the least penalized teams in the league. Right up until like that last game till we played Rockford, and so it's like you get on the power play, you get your advantage, and we just kind of deflate. And I think that I think that had a lot to do with kind of felt like the season right there was like you could sum it up to what went wrong in the season. It was the power play. But yeah, it's interesting about the penalty kill was actually it was down, you said?
79.8% this year. And I go back to last season, we were 86.2% for the season. Our power play actually, technically, statistically, got better. We were 15.9% last season and 17.1 or 2 this season. And you look at the time shorthanded, 123 last season to 109 this year. So less time shorthanded and a worse penalty kill. Not a great recipe right there. To see the power play get better, but a 2% improvement, maybe, I don't know. Someone will have to correct me in the comments if that's a great improvement or not. But when your team goes 40 opportunities without a goal, you know the power play is a problem.
Well, you know, too, like this was a young roster. I mean, you had Tuo, you had Shai Buyam, you had William Ballinder running on the defensive end. And so like you have those young guys. Last year we had Simon, we had Albert Johansson. Like you lose a lot of big like contributions from the roster that got promoted. So, and then you lose Bergie, you lose Marco. Like those guys were great on the penalty kill and on their power play. So it was just like you lose a lot. It's a lot of young. It's a lot of I don't want to say inexperienced, but just a lot of younger guys. And so my biggest hope is like next year next year's going to be really telling of these guys is like, did they develop? Did they get better? Is this going in the right direction?
I mean, the average age of this roster this past season was 24.86 years old. So it's a year younger in average than it was last year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in the terms of an entire roster, that kind of is. So,
did you throw in ours too? Our birthdays?
No, ours don't count. It's in terms of AHL, it was a young roster, and you did have a lot of guys, like we've said a couple times already, guys being put in positions they weren't expected to be in. There was guys running the power play that probably didn't expect to be at that point this year. I don't think Shai anticipated to be running the power play at all in his first pro season. And if he did, good for him for having high expectations on himself. And you had guys in the penalty kill too that wouldn't normally be on the PK when you look at some of the injuries and call-ups we had. I mean, all the times Austin Watson was gone and Dominic Shine, those are two of your biggest penalty killers right there. They were gone for a significant amount of time, and that's around the time that things fell off with the PK too. So you can kind of put 2 and 2 together to figure it out.
But it's still inexcusable, I would still say. Like, yeah,
it was a very defensive structured team. It is not good to see that fall off.
I mean, it wasn't good the first year Waddy was here. It's not good the second year Waddy was here. Like, there's just you can't be that low on the power play penalty kill. Like under 20% of the power play.
Well, the penalty kill was 86.2% his first season. That's pretty good.
That's really good. I remember us talking about this year. I remember us talking a lot throughout is like the 100% is where you want to be between the two. And we're like, yeah, but you still got to fix this power play. Like it's still the same issue as the year before.
You're going to kill me.
What?
I had the home filter on for those stats.
That's okay. So, I mean, that's really bad for the home side. What is it overall, Brandon?
So overall in the season, it was 82.8 for the penalty kill. So about a 4% drop, and then 17.3% on the power play there. Still not great by any means. And our total times shorthanded was not 208. It was 238. So
Wow.
On the road, we were a pretty disciplined team.
Yeah, I was gonna say, dang, that didn't change a whole lot at all. So that's
Sorry,
fantastic.
folks. If you listen to that whole segment, you're like, you guys are idiots. I'm not going to go back and cut it out either, because there was good points said in there that are valid for the entire thing, not just home. But at the same time, yeah, special teams, not great. And it was, it raised a lot of questions. You look at the guys behind the bench, right? Dan Watson is a very defensive-minded coach. Assistant coach Brian Lashoff, obviously a defenseman in his career. And Steph Julian is also a defensive-minded coach. And he was the one running the power play on that end. Yeah.
Interesting. I thought he was like one of the most offensive coaches in the queue.
Very defensive-minded in his structure, I should say. The Q is just an offensive league no matter what. So if you can somehow get good defense and get your offense clicking, you look like an offensive god out there, honestly. Unless you're playing up against a really good goaltender every night. But at the same time, like 3 defensive structured coaches, you hoped for just a stellar penalty kill and you were counting on the power play to give you one here and there. I think the biggest thing that killed the Griffins with special teams is with the times they needed that goal or the times they needed that kill was where momentum would swing in those games that ended up resulting in one of these, blown 2-goal, 3-goal leads. It was usually off the backs of a power play goal scored by the other team or back-to-back-to-back kills by the other team because we couldn't get it going. And then they found their mojo. You don't need to score every power play and you don't need to kill every penalty, but the ones that control momentum in the game, you gotta win those battles.
You can't go 0 for 42. You can't go 0 for 10. Like if I win that in my job, I'd be fired. like not pointing fingers here, but I'm just like 0 for 10. You gotta figure this out. You're gonna hate me, but I wanted to say this on our last Toledo episode is the way the Lions played, it reminded me a lot of like how we played here at Grand Rapids. And I'm wondering if Waddy and them were trying to play more of that style because it was more of like a shell. And then like they didn't get a whole lot. The Lions never really got a whole like a cycle or a good offensive like rhythm in our zone at all against Toledo. And I'm like, I wondered if this is the style that they were trying to play or the system that they were trying to play down here at Grand Rapids, just knowing like we had so many bigger name defensive prospects, more defensive minded coaches, and we didn't have a whole lot on the offensive side, especially when a lot of guys going up to Detroit and, we're missing, some big name prospects like MBN who was overseas, and we had some injuries with Carter Mazer. So I'm wondering if that's kind of, I'm hoping we get a talk with Waddy in the offseason, which I'm sure we will, and kind of ask him that same question is like, is that the style that you guys want to play? Is like a more tough, more defensive, like very disciplined style, I guess.
I mean, it would make sense, right? I mean, you saw moments in the season where the power play would start moving. They'd start moving their feet, moving the puck well, and we'd sit there in press row being like, yes, this is what we've been missing. This power play looks completely different. And then they go out there for the next power play shift and look like their old selves. And you're just kind of like scratching your head going, what you guys just did a shift ago worked. And now we're doing something completely different. And then you'd see it for a whole game. You'd see 2 or 3 power play goals in a game and be like, who's this team? We saw it in Rockford where they had that game where they had 3 power play goals and they won 3-1. Like all their goals were power play goals. And you're like, cool. Yeah. And then the next 2 games, they couldn't get a power play goal. And the same goes for the penalty kill. You'd see these incredible kills and then you'd see it falter. And, talking defensive coaches, defensive-minded coaches, I'll give them credit when credit is due. We were 9th in the American Hockey League in goals against with 203. Not a bad freaking stat when you look at that, but then you go to the offensive side of the puck.
Especially when you have 3 goalies.
Yeah, right. We were 26th in the league in scoring at 202 goals scored. So 202 scored, 203 against. Just under even there, but at the same time, that special teams was painful, man. It was painful. And hopefully we see something different next season.
The crazy thing, too, for goals for, we only scored 6 goals less than the year before, and we gave up 1 more goal than the year before.
Again, the stats were very similar. We maintained where we were before with a less experienced roster in a league where experience really, really matters. So... yeah. There's credit where credit is due to this roster and this team for this year. And I know the end result wasn't what people wanted, but there's a lot of positives to take away. And I'm sure when we talk to Coach Watson this offseason, he'll probably tell us that exact same thing. But at the same time, the negatives when they showed, oh boy, did they show.
They were ugly.
They were. And, you know, the last negative on our sheet was the second half season collapse. Like you brought up earlier, the beginning of the season, this team was rolling. It was one of the best teams in the American Hockey League for a very long time there. And then December came around. And then January came around. And oh, God, February. We don't talk about February. February was bad.
I don't think we won a game. I hit the panic button a lot.
You did. The panic button went through your desk. There's a hole where it used to be. I know what I think led to that collapse, and I don't know if I want to hit on it before letting you hit on it, because I don't know what things you're going to throw at me. So I'm going to say the one thing that needs to be said is I don't think fans realize how much the Carter Mazur injury hurt this Griffins team. Yes, it's one guy, but that is a key player. And then when he was called up and then injured in Detroit, you then lost two guys, which then was the end result was Shiner going back up there. That's another huge piece of this team. That injury impacted this Griffins team all season long in a way bigger way than your average fan would think it would.
There's a lot with this is like they were hitting really well in the beginning of the season, like October, November. I didn't get to see much because I was in Mexico, and then when I came back, it's just kind of like they forgot how to play hockey. No, but once McClellan came in, once Todd came in, the one thing that we all want to see is he's giving people. They're moving people up, right? They moved Elmer up. He didn't have the stats, but he was putting in the effort.
His play deserved the call up.
Yeah. Casper up there. Shiner up there. Watson up there. Carter Mazur injured. Got the chance. Like he's gambling. Injured again. Like he's giving these guys a chance to earn their spot. Like, hey, Shiner, like you've been with the organization for a while. I don't understand why you're not up here. Putting you in the lineup. Let's see what we got. Hey, I'm so glad we have this guy in the organization. I don't know why this guy was a hidden secret for me. I'm glad he's here. Let's put him in. Give him his time to shine. So I rolled off the tongue, buddy. I'm sorry. So like you want to see that. And Albert Johansson also getting his chances in the lineup. Like that's stuff you want to see, but you don't want to see it because of injuries. You don't want to see it also picking our team apart like that did. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. It's like at that one point we had 13 forwards.
Yeah.
Was it 13?
I think one of those nights we had to go 11-7. I think we had 11 healthy forwards and 7 healthy defensemen, and that was it at one point. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here by saying, you know, the depth problem was a problem, but folks, it was a problem. And, you know, you look at like the injuries and the call-ups, like I said, the Mazur one, you got to remember the Amadeus Lombardi injury also hurt this team too. You look at the production he had this season, and he was injured in early December. Yeah. His last game before injury, or the game he got injured on, was December 1st, and his next game after that was February 19th. It's 2.5 months of no Amadeus Lombardi. When January and December, those were heavy packed schedules. There's a lot of games those months. And that's right around also where the fall off happened too. And not that the fall off is Amo's fault. It's, you know, he came back and he still was producing, and he was put in some weird situations playing winger and all this stuff all over the lineup. But two big pieces like that gone for a long time. Dominic Shine missing a bunch of time with his opportunity in Detroit. And like you said, well-deserved there. Austin Watson up and down. And the only other thing I could complain with Detroit in the call-ups was the guys they would call up and just not play. I know they wanted to have them ready, especially on road trips. Todd seems to be a big guy to call up people just to be safe. But at the same time, there was some key points in the season where there was guys called up, and you're looking at that roster going 11-7 going, this is all we had, because they called up Rafferty to sit in the press box tonight. Like, that stuff was frustrating, and that's not, you know, Todd's fault. I understand wanting to be prepared, especially when your team was going through the injury bug it did. You want to have guys. You don't want that last second chaotic call up and end up having to put that guy in the lineup off of a plane. But at the same time, it goes back to that depth in Grand Rapids and just not having it.
I'm surprised you called out Rafferty, because all season you're pounding the table for William Lagesson, who his last game with the Griffins was January 2nd. And just that also was a big defensive leadership spot now taken up by somebody more young. And don't get me wrong, we had a ton of defensemen this year. Like,
we at one point I think had 9 or 10.
And we traded Dello just because he wasn't even getting any playing time. So
Yeah.
didn't have a
Lagesson,
spot
I'm so
for him.
glad you said it because it was next on my list to hit,
Oh.
and the YouTube viewers could see the frustration on my face when they mentioned it. That whole situation sucked for us in Grand Rapids. And yes, Red Wings fans could be like, oh, the Griffin stuff doesn't matter. No, this guy was called up after January 2nd and played, maybe 1 or 2 games at the Wings, and they didn't send him back down to qualify him for playoffs. Unless there was some injury, which I don't think there was because he was at morning skate and doing all this stuff with the Red Wings. I don't understand if it was just someone forgot to submit the paper, someone forgot about him. I don't know. He should have been back in GR at some point in time because that was a huge piece of the veteran leadership on the Griffins back end there. Like, could you imagine how much more William Vollinder and Shai Buyam could have learned from him this season? And people might, again, just say, oh, it's just William Lagesson. I mean, just William Lagesson. He had 9 points in 23 games, plus 13 on the defensive side of the puck there, and got suspended once for a sick MMA takedown. Like, the guy was everything. He's all you'd want in a veteran AHL defenseman. Let's be real.
I wondered if there's more to it that we just don't know, and that's why he didn't come back. Like, I don't know.
It will be a question that I will want to ask Dan Watson. I just want to make sense of it because on paper and as a fan, it makes no sense to not send him back down to Grand Rapids after, what did I say, January 2nd? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he played, I don't know how many games he played in Detroit.
Oh, you're going to hate this. He played 7.
Yeah. Like,
7
come on.
games from January 2nd to April.
The end of the season. Like, it's stuff like that, you know, I know every Red Wings fan, when they're just Red Wings fans and you don't look at the whole organization, you're like, why are these guys talking about it? But when you look at the organization over a whole and understand what extra development he could have given this young D-core and just his presence and veteran leadership on the team overall, not just for the defense, but all of the guys, like that's a huge miss there by the organization overall. And I really do want to understand it. So yes, it will be a question when we get to talk to Coach Watson. I want to ask it and hopefully he can kind of tell us as much detail as possible because it just makes literally zero sense.
I'm sure some of those guys could have learned some moves too from him, you know, on the MMA mat.
Dude, the suspension was the craziest thing all season. Let's be real. That takedown was hilarious. People were so mad about it. I don't care. I thought it was hilarious. And in the situation, I understand why he did it. And yeah, I support it. All right, let's talk about the forward group this year. Obviously, you know, we talked throughout this about lack of scoring. And while we were off air there, Nick, you pointed out the stat of, you know, lack of 20-point guys or higher compared to last season. Last season, we had 14 individuals on this team who had 20 points or more. You could almost say 15 because Matt Luff had 18 in 26 games before his injury. And this year we had 10. So drop off in scoring, obviously, is something we're going to talk about here. But what are just your overall thoughts on the forward group overall? Because, you know, going into this season, we know you had reservations about the defensive pairings, which we'll get there. But the forwards, you didn't really know what to expect. So did they meet your expectations or no?
You want me to give them a grade overall, or what do you?
Sure. Yeah, let's get a grade.
Oh,
School's in session.
I would say, I mean, typically we break this down a little bit more player grades, but I'm going to start it off with a B-. I
think that's a fair grade, honestly. I mean, the lack of scoring was a concern. Now, again, there was some key pieces missing throughout the season. You can use that as an excuse, but every team goes through it, right? There were some guys that really stepped up in a big way. You know, you talked about Sheldon Dries and Joe Snively earlier. Drisey with 40 points this season. Snively led the team with 47. You had Dominic Shine with a career high best season, even missing some games with his opportunity in Detroit. He only played 61 this season and had 46 points. Austin Watson, 42 points. Like those guys, round of applause there. Amadeus Lombardi as well at 40 points, who we mentioned. Nate Danielson at 39. Like that core group there did a great job. And then there was just kind of a fall off. You look at the next two guys in the points chart, those are defensemen. And then your next highest scoring forward after those guys was actually Alexander Doucette, 64 games at 21 points. With Andre Becker, the last guy at 20 points there, and 10th on the team in scoring at 20 points exactly. The rest of the forward group is,
Underperformed.
yeah. Who do you think underperformed the most?
I'm going to take the easy one. I'm going to take Tim Gettinger for 200 out of Ohio, the king of Cleveland. Isn't that what we called him? The son of what did we call him? Man, I'm blanking.
the pride of Cleveland.
Pride of Cleveland. I'm going to go with 200 points for Pride. Wow.
Oh, we've been recording too long already. But anyways,
I'm like going through
try that
2
again.
job interviews. So I want to go with the easy one. Not hurt any feelings. I'm going to go with the Pride of Cleveland for 200 points here. Tim Gettinger went from 25
Wish he had
points.
200 points.
Yeah, wish he had 200 points. Or even more than what he had. But he was down from 25 points to 16. So I think he just never got consistent. He was very weird. He was very streaky this year. I don't know if it was like still battling an injury from last season with the hand or what, but I think this is a deal that was signed a little premature from the season prior. So for a guy this big, he should have produced a little bit more because the season prior, he did well for where he was at. And I don't think he was playing too high or too low in the lineup. I think he was spotted the right points, the right point in the lineup.
Yeah, 55 games last season with the Griffins, 25 points. This season, 54 games, 16 points. So almost a 10-point drop off in one less game. Now are those 9 points, make or break for the whole season for the team? No, it's not all on him. But at the same time, yeah, you did expect more out of him in the positions he was playing. And there was times in the season where it just didn't feel like he could keep up with some of his line mates.
Yeah, and it was weird too because we played Cleveland the same amount of times the year prior and this year, and that was where most of his points came from, is playing against the Monsters.
Dude, he was money against the Monsters. Money. Like, if we were playing them as many times as we played like Rockford this upcoming season, I'm like, yeah, sign him to an extension. We need him for 13 games for the guaranteed goal. But at the same time, you look, we probably played the Monsters 6-7 times. He had 7 goals. Most of them came against the Cleveland Monsters. Most of the other games, he wasn't really there, and it does suck. It's a guy that I love the guy in the room. I love the guy off the ice, but I did expect to see more from him this season, especially after rehabbing the injury. Maybe, like you said, maybe he wasn't fully healed and was still battling it. I remember talking to him when he rejoined the lineup after that injury because he did not start the season with the team. So I remember talking to him after morning skate, and he felt mostly better. It was a pretty wicked injury from what he told me. We won't go into details about it, but it was wicked. So coming back from that was definitely hard. But at the same time, we did still expect more from him.
I do want to correct myself on him because he was all over the lineup. Now that I'm looking back at the lineup sheets that we got, like, he was the top line with Danielson and Snively. He was on the bottom line with at points in the season as well. He was in the third line. Bottom line, he was with Hunter, Johannes, and Doucette. Then he was third line with Becker and MBN. Like, he just couldn't get chemistry with anybody that he was with, it seems like.
Yeah, it does suck. I thought you were going to take an easier one to say, who underperformed in your eyes. I was going to go with Cross Annis.
I was leaving that one for you, buddy.
Oh, thanks, bud. I did expect a lot more from him this season. 1 more point than last season, played the exact same amount of games. 17 points in 58 games from a guy like him, which when he had his rookie year and he took off before his big injury, you really thought once he finally rehabbed everything, he was going to be that player again, and he just never found it. If he got points for crossbars, guy would lead the team. It's just puck luck never went his way. And don't get me wrong, his play off the puck, he's a gritty, tough forward to play against, makes really good decisions with the puck, but just couldn't find the back of the net, and unfortunately couldn't set most guys up either. He had 9 goals, 8 assists, and that was it. And he just couldn't find his stride again. And I know this was the last year of his deal, so we don't know if we'll see him again next year or not. It's a guy that you were rooting for after what you saw out of his rookie season. You wanted to see that Cross Annis come back, and it just hasn't yet over these past couple of years. So it'll be an interesting move to watch this offseason. But those are the two underperforming forwards, I would say, as a group.
Yeah.
Who surprised you the most in the forward group, though?
Ooh, surprises. This was a surprise question I wasn't ready for. Man, that's a tough one.
I'll give you mine first. Well, you think?
Yeah.
We can keep it rolling here. Dominic Shine surprised the hell out of me this season. Like, I knew he had it in him, and you've seen him really flourish under Dan Watson in comparison to coaches in the past. I didn't expect the goal production from him this year at 14 goals. Like, that right there was already crazy. That's 4 more than last season. But the setup guy he became, 32 assists this year in comparison to the year prior where he had 23. Mind you, he really started to take off last year too. If you went back a season before that even, you compare those stats to this past season, it'd blow your mind. But I just think he took a lot of steps forward at this level. Obviously got his opportunity in Detroit, well deserved for the way he played in Grand Rapids this year. It was probably my favorite story of the season outside of, Mazer's call up and the whole hype around that. Unfortunately, it ended the way it did. But the feel good story of the season in the American League was Dominic Shine. And you couldn't love it more for the guy because he's just a great dude. But at the same time, the production he had to finish second on this team in scoring this year shocked me. I would not have had that in a season prediction if we had broken that down. No way.
Yeah. That was a surprise of the season. But it seems like last year he was kind of like, he started slow and then he kind of ramped up halfway through the season. And it's just kind of turned it on. And I think he kind of found his footing with Waddy and like where he needed to be. And he just kind of turned it on. So I wasn't like too surprised.
I mean, he finished this season 10 points shy of where Bergie finished last season. That's insane. That's insane when you think about that.
I guess, but I don't know. Like, I expect that out of Dom Shine. Like, I know he has it in him. Especially watching him during
early Dom
camp.
Shine, you didn't see that, right? Your training camp, like you knew this season was going to be good for him.
Oh yeah.
But for those of us that have seen him go through what he's gone through in the American League and battling for those spots, being that veteran guy, this season was just full of surprises. Because I don't think there was, even with his production, like there was no point at the beginning of the season where I'm like, he's going to get a call up this year. He's going to sign an NHL contract this year. No one predicted that. And I'm so glad the Red Wings did it because it was so cool to see.
Yeah, he had said too, like this may have been his last season because he didn't know if he was going to ever get that shot in the NHL.
Now he signed a deal for next year, so.
Yeah, a Red Wings contract.
Yeah.
My surprise, I'm going to throw 2 of them if I remember the second one once I get done explaining the first one. The first one I'm going to say is Alex Doucette. Yeah, I know you love that. Alex Doucette. And the reason why is because he ended up finishing with 7 goals, 14 assists, 21 points for the season. He was a -1. For a guy that just came from Toledo, and there were nights he was on the top line, there were nights he was on the third line. Like, it seemed like he always surprised us when he scored. Like, he's like, oh yeah, he just go to the corners. He's getting those tough, gritty goals. Like, it was a guy you're like not expecting to score or be kind of like third, fourth line and kind of chip in here or there. But like, this guy seemed to be kind of rolling and get his confidence. And I think next year you're going to see, I'm hoping you see a big step from him on that end.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's a guy that, you look at the lineups in the playoffs, and he didn't play until game 3. He didn't play game 1. He didn't play game 2. He played in game 3, the game that they almost won, game that goes to overtime. It's a guy that I don't think should have been out of the lineup at any playoff game because his style of hockey is built for the playoffs. He's rough. He's tough. He will throw hits when he needs to. He will make guys miss when he needs to. And he will get those gritty goals around the net. And that's all we talked about in all those post-game recaps with the Griffins is wanting chaos around the goaltender. Someone there to scoop that up and get that dirty goal. And he was in the press box for game 1 and 2. That was a frustrating decision, if you ask me, over some of the other guys that ended up in the lineup in those games. I understand there was lineup restrictions because there was 2 players added at the end of the season. in MBN and ASP, and obviously ASP is a defenseman, so he doesn't impact this, but you got to play MBN,
Finney.
like you have to.
And Finney.
Finney was added too. So yeah, that does, make that move there. Not that I don't think Finney should have been in the playoff lineup. I think he should have. I think MBN obviously should have. But when I look at the lineup, for game 2, I'm like, yeah, there's a couple that I might have put in there instead of Deuce.
I probably would have
put Deuce in there instead of the others. I mean,
yeah, I would have kept Deuce instead of Finney, just to Deuce has been here all season. Just rewarded.
I would have kept Deuce instead of the guy that you said underperformed this season.
Oh yeah, that's fair. But how are you going to sit a 6-foot guy? But when you can't see him out there on the ice, I guess that's probably why. You want my other one? Oh,
if you do have the other one, yes, of course I want it.
So speaking of people you see on the ice, and this is going to be under the radar guy, but this is Carson Bantle.
Dude.
Carson Bantle doesn't have a whole lot of points, but he came in, he stepped into a role that he did very well with in the forward side, and it's nothing that surprised us because we watched him out of Toledo, and this guy is a freaking human wrecking ball. You just love to see it. His goal in the Kelly Cup, just fantastic.
His first AHL goal. It was a freight train coming down the center there.
I just love it. I'm so excited for this guy for next season. I mean, he had 1 goal, 1 point, -3. Still not bad for 23 games played. He didn't light up the board, but that's not a guy that you had on the season where you're like, this Carson Bantle kid. I can't wait to see him play. I thought he did pretty well to hold his own. Hopefully he doesn't go through kind of like a sophomore slump like some other people that we've had for this season. But regardless, I'm hoping this guy, he's playing that role that we wanted Elmer to play. And Elmer just never got it, right? He never was that.
Well, he
physical.
did this season, but the physicality from Elmer came out this season. And obviously, like we said, he earned that spot in Detroit, but he was a great replacement for Elmer when that call-up happened. He brought the same level of physicality that we had from Elmer at that time this year. And yeah, like I said earlier in the show too, that fourth line of him, Hunter, and Seager, that line was the energy line. They got the crowd going. They got the boys back in the game when they needed to, and they could produce offense too. So yeah, good choice there, buddy. Good choice. On to the defensive side of things now. Same questions as before. Who underperformed on the defensive side of the puck for you?
This is tough because the reason I say it's tough is because
William Lagesson. Because he wasn't here.
He should have choked that guy out a little bit sooner. I'm kidding. Who underperformed on the defensive side? And I'm not going to say Vero because that's just an easy shot. I don't know. That's a tough one because, like I said, some of these guys are playing above where they should have, right? This is the first year for Vollinder and 2-0 to be playing in that first pairing, and then you have Bouillon also take over for some of that as well. So it's I don't know if they actually underperformed. I think they were playing above where they needed to, but that's just what you had, and you're not going to put the veterans in that spot. I don't want to dog that they're maybe too slow. Maybe that's why he didn't put them in the top spot to shut down. I think they had a lot of responsibilities being on that top line of Vollinder too, because they were the first pair for the majority of the season. I mean, if you go down, it's Bouillon and Rafferty, and then the bottom pair kind of swap from Vero, Didier, Dello at points when we had him, and then it got really interesting with Lagesson being added and people coming and going. So I don't know if they actually have a guy that was hey, this was kind of disappointing. He didn't play that well this season for defense.
Oh, I've got one.
Go ahead.
William Vollinder.
I knew you were going to say that, but I wasn't trying to pile at him. I know he cannot keep the puck in on the blue line, and it makes you nervous.
He can't keep the puck at the blue line to save his life. But at the same time, defensively, there was, especially on the power play, there was defensively points in the season where he'd get burned in situations that he shouldn't have been getting burned in. I mean, statistic-wise this season, 62 games played, 2 goals, 17 assists for 19 points and a -4. It wasn't the worst, but It's his second
He wanted
season.
more.
Obviously, first season he played sheltered minutes. He played that third pairing for the majority of the season. And you saw Albert Johansson get that same treatment in Grand Rapids. And Albert Johansson last year was his breakout season to start playing the top pairing in the defense there. At 66 games played, 6 goals, 15 assists for 21 points. So just a couple more than Volander there. But on the plus side of the puck was that +7, that nice, really stable defenseman. Led the defenseman in plus-minus last year, actually, for the Grand Rapids Griffins. And when you got to fill those shoes with a guy that you expect to come in and fill those shoes, and I don't think he was close. I don't think he was anywhere close to what Albert provided defensively for this team last season. And I think that's the easiest comparison to make because of where he was drafted and the expectations around this prospect. I think he underperformed to his expectations this year. And I don't mean to pile on him. I don't. It's never personal, but I just expected more. Especially when you look at the opposite side of the spectrum and Antti Tuomisto. Those were the two that coach told us to watch out for to have a breakout season. And Tuomisto led the defenseman in scoring this year. And was at least on the positive side and plus-minus on the defense there too. And was scratched in the last games in the playoffs because he was too slow, according to Steve Yzerman. Anyways.
I mean, did you just have too high of expectations for Volander? Is that why? And I'm a fan of Volander. I've got a side jersey. I've got a side puck. Like I like this guy.
I do too.
I'm hoping this season is the one that's like, hey, here I am. This is who I am. This is how I play. Like knocking on the door, right? He was an SHL like
my
top
expectations too high. Is the question I'm stuck on? I don't think so. I mean, you're talking 2020 second round pick, 32 overall by the Red Wings. Was he an offensive powerhouse in the SHL? No. 50 games in his last season with Rogel and did 26 points. But defensively was a lot more sound over there than he was over here. And I mean, you just even compare it, like you compare it to last season, right? Volander last season, 65 games, 3 goals, 12 assists for 15 points. Obviously, he increased his production there, but he was playing significantly less minutes. And I look at Albert Johansson's first season in Grand Rapids, 10 goals, 15 assists. And he was a -7. But everyone was a minus on that Griffins roster that year. That roster was terrible. But the turnaround defensively for him in his second year was a lot greater than what we saw Volander do this year. So I do think it was underwhelming. I know Red Wings fans are going to come after me for that being a top defensive prospect. But when you watch every game, you see the stuff.
I mean, I feel like they've already forgot about this guy because ASP's here. So it's like next shiny thing is like they're already moved on from this guy. But I think too is like he still stayed at a -4, right? He's playing more minutes. He's playing more at the top. You have a younger forward group who's not coming back to help either. Like you saw a lot of that where they weren't able to kind of transition out of the neutral zone. So he's playing and like you said, he didn't help a whole lot in the neutral zone either. Like we're in the offensive end and the puck's going back to the neutral. So I don't fault him completely on it. I'm excited to see this third year, see what he does.
It's a make or break year.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that for sure.
Yeah, it's a make or break year this year. His contract, this is the last year of his contract with Detroit too. It would really suck to see, you saw Vero, obviously he was a 2020 third round pick. Wallander was picked before him. Vero's gone. That didn't pan out. You'd hate to see it with back-to-back picks there if you're a Red Wings fan. Not ideal.
I think he gets traded, but
Oof.
That's probably another episode.
Nick's hot take for the night. Shocking. There's usually more than one.
Still early.
Now, who on the defensive side surprised you this year?
Anton Johansson. No, I'm kidding.
He did surprise me.
I will say he surprised me, and only the fact that he did get here, and then because we didn't know what was going on. He had to. We were starting to lose hope that he was going to make it over here. He had just signed the contract over there, over in Europe, and come to find out too, his dad is like the general manager over there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance where he's not here to start next season. There's a chance. I've seen articles about it, and we'll talk about those as the offseason goes on, obviously. But we hope he's here because what we saw in 11 regular season games, we loved. And coach loved him.
Yeah.
Coach was very impressed by him.
Great attitude.
He's a good surprise, but who else was the surprise for you?
The other surprise that was a good surprise was probably, I would say, Shai Buyam. I mean, I wasn't expecting this guy to come in and, play the power play, be the quarterback of the power play. Passing was crisp. The passing was so good with Shai. He was able to find the open guys. His confidence really grew throughout the season. So I was pleasantly surprised by him, and especially when coach was putting him in the top pairing, like at the end of the season, like he was putting him up there. So, I would say that's my surprise, my good surprise.
That's my surprise as well this year.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. There's only so many defensemen you can pick from, right? But at the same time,
there's 12 of them.
There's 11 on the roster, and one of them got traded, and one played 2 games in the regular season at the ASP. For being his rookie season, Shai Buyam impressed the heck out of me. You look at 67 games, 2 goals, 23 assists for 25 points, and a +2. I want to put these points in front of you and see if you can guess who this is in their rookie year as a defenseman. 52 games, 5 goals, 22 assists for 27 points. So 2 more points than Shai had in his rookie year. Who was it?
Moritz Seider.
Oh, it was Simon Edmondson.
Ah, man.
Simon Edmondson had 27 points in his rookie year as a defenseman here in Grand Rapids. That's not a bad comparison, not bad company to be with, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I felt Simon was way more offensively geared than Shai is, if that makes sense. Like, he was Simon would take the puck all the way through the neutral zone into the goal if he could. Like, I've seen him do this. Shai, you didn't really see that a whole lot. He was more setting people up, getting it, he was already in the zone and setting people up. But I feel like Simon was like, I want to get a goal. I got to get this team in this win. He would put the team back on his back. So,
yes.
Yeah, that's surprising.
And just because you brought it up, Moritz Seider's first season with the Griffins, his rookie year, 49 games played, 2 goals, 20 assists for 22 points. So Shai Buyam actually outscored him, but of course Shai has played on North American ice a little bit longer than Mo did in his first year. And again, that Griffins team was nothing to write home about. Same with Ed. Ed first year was, that season that we don't talk about was our first year doing this. But at the same time, to be that close to those 2 names right there in your first season, not a bad thing if you're a Red Wings fan. Time to probably get excited about this kid and what he could do this second season here.
Yeah, because even his when Simon was here, I love Simon, but he drove me crazy with his mistakes. He had some bonehead mistakes, and so I'm like,
until the second half of his last season. The second half of his last season is where he got good.
He cleaned it up. You didn't see that with Shai. He was quietly good, which is good. So, yeah, I think. I mean, I was pounding the table for him all season, Shai Buyam. So,
yeah, there's a reason for Red Wings fans to be excited about him. There really is. So, a name to watch this year. I bet you $1 when we do a preseason interview with Coach, we're gonna be like, who do we watch out for this year? And I bet you that's a name he drops.
I hope so.
I do too. Moving on from defensemen, we got to talk about goalies, obviously, right? Got to talk about the goalies. And obviously, you start with the big fella. You start with Sebastian Cossa. And fans think this season was just terrible for him, right? They think he had a bad season. We've said it through and through that in comparison to last season, it's not a bad season. And I want to show that comparison right now. 40 games last year for the Griffins for Sebastian Cossa, 2.41 goals against and a .913 save percentage. 41 games this year, so one more game, 2.45 goals against and a .911 save percentage. So, yes, technically the stats are a little less, but you're talking 0.04 less.
Yeah.
He had a great season. Were there moments where you were like, oh, Coase, what are you doing? Yes. But were there moments where you were like, holy bleep, you just made that save? Yeah, there was a lot of those. There was a lot more of those than the head shaking, like, buddy, what are you doing? And I would argue that a lot of the time he went out there and gave this team a chance to win, and the team didn't provide the win.
Yeah, not enough offense. Not enough time in the offensive zone either. Like, and not enough power play goals. Like, these are things that, start there and work your way back. I mean, I thought he played well this season. It's nothing that I was like, okay, this guy hit the wall or sophomore slump. Like, I didn't see that. He's played steady. It was never like, I don't know if he found that next gear, which is what I think a lot of people were looking for. But for me, I'm like, he stayed steady. And there's the thing that's been on him his entire career is he starts slow, right? He always has a rough, like, I don't know what he does in the off season where he's just, I don't know what he's doing.
First few games are always a little rough. Or
like he's not ready for training camp. I don't know what he's doing. So, so people are always like harsh on him at that point. But I think this season he just came in. He was steady from beginning to end. There was no ups. There were no big downs. Like he was just pretty much steady. And I think people wanted to see him take that next step. And I mean, it's to stay steady is not a bad thing at all, because when you look at the other goalies that were drafted in his class, like they all had worse second seasons than they had first or third, right? So I think this is going to be a trajectory that's still going to continue to go up with him.
I think there is a aspect of his game that he did find a new gear with, and it was one of the most important ones to him, and it was consistency.
Yeah.
We asked him, what were you hoping to work on going into this season? And it was, you wanted to be more consistent. And I would agree 100% that he was more consistent this season overall. And it 100% goes back to the team in front of him didn't take advantage of the opportunity that he gave them to have the chance to win. And then it just all went south usually after that. And they're like, again, the defensive plays where he was up against, sometimes I was just like, oh my God, what they left him hung out to dry often in that second half of the season.
Drop passes, going right to nobody, and
turnovers.
It was ugly. And I mean, the other thing too that he had to kind of battle as well is like he had Billy Husso behind him, right? NHL goaltender at multiple points in his career. You had Jack Campbell, who was also an NHL goaltender, and those guys were going through a 3-cycle like starter goal. Like, I don't think he had a good plan, I guess. Like, they didn't have a good plan for the goalies like they typically do. When you're running just two, you kind of know, hey, it's me and it's Hutch the next night. It was just kind of like, I don't know, there was a little bit of a rhythm, but I think that still kind of throws them off a little bit, to be honest. I mean, he played the majority of the games, 41 games played. The other two split a lot of them. And then you had Yanni, you had Carter, you had Malcolm. A lot of people forget about Malcolm in the beginning.
He never even played a game,
which that was so strange. But
yep.
So like, it's funny when people are freaking out about goalies and Detroit's looking at goalies. It's like this is going to be normal for a while, especially with who we have side and outside. But I think I kind of want to jump ahead real quick. But like Yanni, 4 games played, 7 goals against. He was a 2.12, 1 win, 2 loss. Like, to me, I'm just like, what is the organization doing here? Like, this
I know, man.
It's to me, it's heartbreaking because like I like the guy off the ice. He's a character. I can't wait. I'm hoping we can connect with him in the off season before he leaves or.
I think there's a game plan for that, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That whole thing wasn't a part of the game plan there, so we'll see. But I do want to hop back to Cossa on 2 things. One, he allowed 3 more goals against this year with 1 more game played. Oh my God, it's the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
Calm down, folks. And you talked about the stability around him with the goalie carousel that existed here in Grand Rapids. You do look at last year. He played 40. Michael Hutchinson played 32. You look at this year, Coase played 41. Husso played 13. Campbell played 14. Gylander played 3. And Bednar played 4. Like, it was pure chaos around him. That's not a healthy environment to be in. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Including a call-up in the middle of that, too.
Yeah, and he's got his first NHL win. Like, I mean, how can you... He didn't look great, but he was up there. He got the win.
Hey, he
That's all
figured
that
it out,
matters. Yeah.
Exactly. Move to the other guy, right? Obviously, we could talk about Husso. He's not a part of the
What other
organization
guy?
anymore. We liked what Husso played in. You know, he had good games. Obviously, everyone in the Red Wings fandom hated his game in the NHL, but his game in the AHL was really good. Like, there was no complaints most nights for him. And then Jack Campbell on the other side, again, only played 14 games in the regular season this year for us. 2.91 and a .893 save percentage there. It's underwhelming, I guess, to say the least. You missed Hutch, but
Yeah.
that's all I got. I don't have much else to say. Nicest guy to talk to would be the last thing I'd add. Nicest guy. But for a guy that went through what he went through, I mean, this is kind of what I expected when they signed him. Not a lot of games. There was that weird point there where he was healthy and they called up Bednar to play, and we were trying to figure out what was the thought process going in there. It was just to get him games. Who knows? But yeah, the goalie situation was just, the only way to describe it was Coast played well this season and the rest was chaos.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out too, like I was going through stats and seeing like, because Jack and Billy kind of had like it's such a weird role to have 3 goalies throughout the season. It's not something that's normal at all. And I'm like, was it better to have a 1A, 1B like with Hutch the season prior? And the numbers were actually better with Hoos and Jack than they were with Hutch. Like
Combined, yes.
Yeah.
On their own, Husso was slightly better. Jack was worse.
Yeah. And Jack was in the player development program and he was coming out of that during the season. So it was like, you had to deal with that as well.
There was a lot going on.
There's a lot.
And let's be real, there were some games near the end of the season where Jack came in and played outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember one against Texas specifically. But at the same time, that consistency around Coast, I think, was a lot better when there was just him and Hutchinson.
Yeah.
You know, you had Lethman come up for one game because of an injury. You had Husso come down for a game because of injury. And that game he got a shutout in, because that's what Husso does in his first game of the season with the team, usually. He did it when he went to San Diego, too, in that trade. So, yeah, man. I mean, obviously, Gylander played a couple, too. But we'll talk more about him in our Toledo recap, because that's where he spent the majority of the season. It's, again, Coast played well. The rest is chaos. Moving on.
It's going to be chaos. I feel like this organization, until they just continue to add goalies until somebody can figure it out, you know. It's just going to be a head scratcher. I mean, there's a lot of goalies we still have in the organization that we just don't even have signed too. So that's why we continue to add where we can. So,
yep, it's going to continue to be chaos, but I will continue to say Detroit should not have 3 in Detroit. It needs to be a situation where it's 2 goalies, and if one goes down, Cossa gets the call up this season. They cannot roll with 3 again. They cannot. That's only hurting his development. And if you think I'm wrong about that, you can argue with me in the comments about it later. But it's the truth. It is the honest truth. He needs that stability. Yeah, you're gonna come fight with me in the comments, Nick. Let's go. But he needs that stability, man. He needs to know, like, okay, if they go down, I'm going up. That's only gonna help his preparedness level for every game, because he's gonna have to be ready at any given time to go make that move. Moving on, we've talked about the forwards, we talked about the defense, we talked about the goaltenders. I want to know, Nick, who was your regular season or season-long MVP for the Grand Rapids Griffins?
This is going to surprise you, but I'm taking Mr. Joe Snively.
Okay.
Joe Snively came in, he led the team. Led the team in goals.
Scoring.
Yes. I was clicking on something. I was trying to figure out something.
I could see your thoughts moving as you were going. It's fine.
Yeah, I was thinking. But no, he led the team in points. He was a -8. Every time after post game, like we called him, he had great answers. He was consistent as well. I think bringing this guy in was huge too. I mean, coming from Hershey, it just brought a lot to this team, I felt. So I'm going with Joe Snively. I'm sure that was probably a surprise. You probably thought I was going to pick somebody else, but maybe I left him for you.
I don't think my pick is who you think it's going to be.
You can say Austin Watson.
I am.
I guess.
Good guess there. Yeah, man. What Austin Watson brought to this team, not just in the form of physicality, right? He was a menace. He was riding the potential of being suspended for his next fight for a lot of the season. And he was just a stand-up teammate to protect these young guys out there. Like, if somebody touched one of these younger players, he was all over them. But what we know and what we've seen off the ice for him in the leadership that he brought to this team, I think that needs to be talked about. Every single player on the team always mentioned him when you're talking about leadership. The way he talked about this team in post-game interviews, the way he talked about the game and the guys, he was the most. We were so unsure when the Red Wings signed him after training camp. Everyone was like, what are we doing? And he ended up being probably the biggest key piece of this Griffins team for the entire season, just in his leadership on and off the ice alone. Not to mention finished 4th in scoring, right? Like that's nice too. But I think when you put the whole package together, just not the on ice play, he was such a key piece of this organization, and I'm so excited that we have him coming back this next year. Like that leadership with this many young players, it cannot be understated how valuable that is at this time.
And the energy that he brought, like he
It
was
was great.
in the locker room. He was great. I mean, it was just you never knew what you were gonna get with him, but you always wanted to hear from him because it was gonna either challenge our editing skills or your editing skills, or it was just gonna be great content. So I'm glad to see him coming back. But yeah, protecting Nate, teaching Nate the ropes, it was huge. And this was a guy that got signed right before. And I want to apologize again. Like this guy, we signed right before training camp, like right around that time. And I was just like, why are we talking about this guy? Like he's not going to make the Wings. He's probably not coming here.
He shut you up real quick.
Yeah, I'm glad the way he did too, because like
he did all the things you said he wouldn't do.
Yeah, and I've seen him shut up other guys a little bit worse, so it was good. But yeah, big fan of Austin Watson. He was just like in the locker room afterwards, like meeting with the kids, meeting with the guys, like the people that they were bringing in. Like he was always. There were a lot of tough times going to that locker room with losses, and he was always in a decent mood to be able to handle those kids coming in, and always cheerful, always giving his attention to them. So it was huge on that part too. It's just like watching him, and he would stick around at the end and just kind of listen to everybody else's questions and how they answered them in post game too. So huge get for them. I don't know how they got him or what this happened, like how that scouting worked, but it was that was a big win.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was just training camp invitee that ended up panning out in a big way for the team. So,
and he was an all-star.
And he was his first time ever for him, and actually pulled off a pretty sick goal in the All-Star game too. I remember sharing that one on the social pages. Yeah, man, fun player. Excited to see him again this season, and hope that he can, stay that consistent scoring pace, but also just continue to be that leader that we know he is. So,
hopefully, we get him in the offseason.
Dude, that'd be a riot of an interview. My editing skills would be so tested in that one. I can tell you what. We'd try to keep it as uncut as possible, but oh man, that would be a great Patreon exclusive. But I know the bleep button would be used quite a bit.
Maybe it's just awarding content beforehand. And tell him like you got to get it. I can't remember what YouTube's rule is, like 30 seconds or 15 seconds.
I think it's 15 minminutes after the episode starts. You're not supposed to swear in the first 15 minutes.
Maybe we do a 15-minute intro and then we cut him in the middle.
Oh, great guy. Well, with that being said, man, I have no other final thoughts on the season to really add. With that, though, we're going to wrap this episode up. It's gone on long enough. We want to thank everyone for tuning in to our Griffins season recap, and thank you all for following along all season with the Grand Rapids Griffins. Obviously, this is not the end of our content for the offseason. These season recaps are just kicking off the fun. As we've said last episode, expect interviews from us, updates as the season goes on, or the offseason goes on, whatever news breaks. We'll do some fun stuff around the draft as well, so keep an eye out on the social pages for that. Free agency day, we'll probably do some stuff around as well. I usually take that day off of work so I can dive into it all as it happens, because with the way the Red Wings organization is shaped right now, it could impact Grand Rapids quite a bit. So we'll pay attention to that. So we have plenty of fun stuff coming still the off season. The work is kind of just beginning. This is just the cap of the regular season work. But again, a big thank you to everyone who's followed along with us.
Yeah, be ready when we sign another goalie. We'll have an emergency pod episode for it.
Oh my God. When the Red Wings sign a third goalie is when I'll do an emergency pod and have a freaking rant. Either way, before we end the episode, though, we got to thank our sponsors, Everything Hockey Clothing Company, and, of course, DraftKings. When you're betting with DraftKings, use code THPN, and when you're shopping at everythinghockey.com, use code WEST to save a few bucks off your order, and it also supports the show. We also got to thank our Patreon subscribers, which we did something different with Patreon for this summer. And I'm going to let Nick share what that is.
So I got to correct you. We did this last season too. In the off season, we opened it up for everybody. It's free. Come out, check out the extra content, everything that gets cut out of this episode. You'll be able to see what actually goes on throughout the episode. And you'll see Brandon's face just shake and facepalm and all this craziness that I spew out of my mouth. So
I think that makes it into a lot of regular cuts too.
Oh boy. All right. Dang.
But yes, no, there's a lot of unedited content that goes over there, bonus episodes, exclusive stuff too. I know Travis and I are partaking in Brandon Hawkins' golf outing down in Toledo here in July. I know we'll be shooting some stuff down there for that as well. Bonus content will all make it up on Patreon. So patreon.com/Hockeytown West podcast. And like Nick said, it's free for the summer. Head over there and check it out. And if you like seeing the exclusives that we bring, we'll show you the tiers as we head into the regular season before you commit to everything, and bring you more exciting content as the season goes on over there. I know we want to do a lot with that going forward. This is kind of the time to trial some stuff. So we'll appreciate you guys jumping over there, checking it out, and give us feedback. If there's stuff you don't want to see, cool. If there's stuff you want to see, awesome. Let us know. Like, this is the time to come in there and give us open-ended feedback on everything that we're doing over there to make it worth your money when you're subscribing to us on Patreon, because we know money's not free. And you...
Or do it here in the comments here too. Just let us know.
You can do that too, of course. But we really want to see what you want to see on Patreon to make it worth your guys' time and money over there. The unedited episodes on their own are half the time enough to see the chaos that I put up with these other two fools sometimes, or just how bad I fumble things that get edited out of here. Like, you know, when I have the stats wrong, but that's staying in this episode. I don't care. But anyways, like we said, patreon.com, Hockeytown West podcast. You can join our lovely subscribers who are already over there. And that list of people is...
We've got Randy, Alan, Derek, Elaine, Griffin, John, Lori, Michael, and Tyler.
And thank you all for being great supporters as the season goes, or as the season has gone on. We appreciate it so much and enjoy the free content this summer. We, of course, aren't charging those existing subscribers either. So enjoy the free content while you have it. And like we said, you know, head over there, check it out. Let us know what you want to see. With that, everyone, we're going to wrap this one up because I'm fumbling my words and this has gone on long enough. So thank you all for tuning in again. Have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you next with the Toledo Walleye season recap. But until then, go Griffins, go Walleye.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at Brandon GR Hockey.